What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Tuesday with Turbo. This week's episode is going to be a cool one. As we all know, school is right around the corner. I've been seeing some student orientations on Facebook here in town, as well as teachers' orientations. So what better timing than to give your insurance a report card? That's right. We are going to be grading 8 back-to-school insurance decisions from A+ all the way down to F. Did you tell your insurance company your teenager is licensed? What happens when the family car moves to a college campus? Does your child's landlord's policy cover their laptop if it's stolen? We got a lot of these. Some of these decisions could save you money. Some of them could be very detrimental to your pocketbook if not handled correctly. So grab your number 2 pencil, keep your eye on your own paper, and let's find out whether your insurance is passing or needs to stay after class. That's right. Welcome to Tuesdays with Turbo. I am Ryan Turbo Jackson, your insurance resource. These are everyday occurrences. These are questions we get answered all the time. And there's a bonus one, a number 9, that I'll throw in here at the end, just for those that are listening. So that's right. We're going to be grading different scenarios, and like I said, they're normal everyday scenarios. And it's we see it day in and day out, and it's something that I wanted to kind of be proactive about instead of reactive, because sometimes people don't think about this. Now, I will preface this, as well as I do any of these videos. Please check with your agent. Some of these scenarios might be company dependent, which we'll talk about as we go through, but these are generalized statements. So again, always have a open communication with your agent. It's healthy for you, it's healthy for your policies, and it's healthy for your assets. So don't ever feel like you're a burden calling your insurance agent and asking questions, because that's what we're here for. So without further ado, let's get into our first scenario. All right, adding a teenage driver before school starts. Is this an A, B, C, D, F, or there are a couple of them that are incomplete? And this is a slam dunk. This one's obviously an A. Once a licensed teenager regularly starts driving a vehicle in the household, the insurance company needs to know about it. Waiting until after an accident is not the way to go. And you might be saying, well, Ryan, remember you talked about permissive use? Well, yeah, permissive use is an occasional thing. When your child reaches the age where they're driving by themselves and they have their license, they need to be on the policy because A, they live in the household, B, they regularly operate a vehicle that is in the household, and C, they need to be on it, if nothing else, for the medical coverage. So highly important that this is taken care of. Just some talking points here. Teen drivers are expensive because they lack experience and they statistically have more accidents. Parents sometimes avoid adding them for fear of the premium to increase, which is true. A teen may still need to be disclosed even if they only drive occasionally, because they are in the household and they are licensed. A learner's permit may be treated differently than a full license depending on the company. So again, check with your agent, make sure that you're going about this correctly. The vehicle the teen normally drives should also be identified correctly. That is very company dependent. Some companies rely heavily on driver assignments. Some of them do not. But generally speaking, it's normally the case where the new teenage driver is driving the older vehicle of the bunch. So it's just kind of assumed, but again, make sure that your agent knows about that. And while you have your agent on the phone, ask about a good student discount, driver's training, or telematics. I do not suggest telematics. Do not suggest that. Those are a pain in the butt, not only for you, but for us. And here's a quick little scenario. Your daughter gets her license Friday. On Monday, she drives herself to school and backs into another vehicle. You never told your agent she was licensed. Now what? The point isn't to declare the claim automatically denied. The point that the undisclosed household driver can create underwriting and claims complications. And one of the biggest things that we try to alleviate is the time it takes for claims to be processed and checks to be cut to make sure that the repairs are done in a timely manner. So you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping us, because you don't have to call and complain. Ryan, why hasn't the claims adjuster gotten back with me? Ryan, where's the claims check? We've already taken care of adding the driver prior to her driving. So it's going to streamline the whole process so everyone works. Hiding your teenager from the insurance company doesn't make the risk disappear. It just makes the conversation after an accident much, much worse. Much worse. Scenario number two. Student regularly driving a vehicle but not listed. Kind of goes into the prior scenario, but just to kind of give you a little clarification. Car is titled to mom, but 19-year-old son drives it to college, work, and everywhere else. Mom drives it twice a month. Who is actually the primary driver? And as you can imagine, not doing this is an F. This is different from letting a friend borrow your vehicle, like we talked about. This is something that happens regularly on a daily basis for an extended period of time. Permissive use is generally intended for occasional use, not an undisclosed regular driver. Kind of leading into what we talked about in the previous one. A resident child driving every day should not be treated as an occasional guest. The named insured, vehicle owner, principal driver, and garaging address all need to be accurate. An excluded driver may have no coverage while driving the vehicle. College students living away from home can be handled differently by different carriers. Again, check with your agent. Insurance applications are not the place to get creative. Tell your agent who actually drives the vehicle. Now, what we've seen too is we get this a lot when not so much the student driving mom and dad's vehicle all the time, but when the student buys their first car and they're the only one titled, and then mom and dad wants to add it to their policy, which we cannot do because you have to have ownership of the vehicle to put it on your policy. So what we have to do at that point is either have mom and dad co-title the vehicle or have the student get their own policy, which there's pros and cons to, which we've talked about, and I won't go too deep into them this week. Maybe that'll be a topic of another discussion. But having the student have their own policy is not necessarily the worst thing. Is it the more expensive option? The vast majority of the time, yes, up front. But if the premium is paid on time, if they don't have any tickets or accidents, their insurance score gets better and better and better quicker. So when they do go to purchase a house, they have a very solid insurance history built up, so their insurance score will be better, so that initial home policy premium will be lower. So paying a little more upfront to take advantage of I guess, the process, if you want to think about it that way, but you're setting your youngster up for success if you're able to afford something like that. So there's definitely pros and cons to both of them. In number 3, we will stick on the student going away to college, a college student taking the family car to campus. Your son attends college 3 hours away. His car stays there 9 months of the year, but the policy still says it's garaged at your home. Now, one thing I don't think I've really explained really well is a garaging address. It's just as it seems. What address is the car being parked and or stored at, which is called the garaging address. Now, you might be like, well, what difference does that make? Well, take, for instance, here in Marcellus, we're a very small rural community. So having a Marcellus garaging address is vastly different than if your student attends Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. There's far more people there. There's far more likelihood of a loss. And when I say loss, I mean accidents, theft, vandalism, you name it. The only thing that probably decreases is the amount of car versus deer accidents we have in comparison to Marcellus to Kalamazoo, but everything else, it's just more risk because there's more people there. So the garaging address, as you can see, would be different when it comes to rating. Higher the probability of loss, the higher the rate's going to be. So that's where the garaging address becomes really, really, really important. So this one we're going to give it incomplete. We're going to give it incomplete just because almost every carrier handles this different. Some will rate vastly different. Some of them won't. Some of them, as long as the student remains, like their driver's license remains at the household address, some carriers really don't care. But like I said, it's very carrier dependent. So again, talk to your agent. This isn't automatically good or bad. It depends on where the school is and where the vehicle stays and who owns it. Again, getting back to, if the student owns the vehicle, then they need to be on their own policy altogether. If mom and dad still own it, then we need to update the garaging address to reflect where the vehicle is the vast majority of the time. And like this scenario, 9 months. So tell the carrier tell the carrier the vehicle will be kept at school. Update the garaging address if required. Like I said, if required. Confirm whether the student remains a household member under the policy. Again, these are all carrier-dependent things. So again, an open conversation with your agent will save your butt in the long run. It might be a little bit more expensive up front, but again, these are things that we have to take into account. Review who is listed as the vehicle's primary driver, kind of like we talked about in the previous one. While your student is away, one of the big things you want to make sure is consider roadside assistance or rental reimbursement if something were to happen to that vehicle, especially roadside. Little Johnny or Sally is off to school as a freshman, and now if freshmen are allowed vehicles on campus, but they're away from home. They're 3 hours away, like in this scenario, they're 3 hours away from mom and dad. Mom and dad just can't come and swoop up and pick the vehicle up and take it to get fixed. This is something that they're going to be handling on their own. So highly, highly, highly recommend adding roadside and rental car reimbursement to that vehicle if you don't have it already. Make sure the student understands that lending the car to roommates can create a problem. Again, it gets back to the permissive use. If the student has permissive use from mom and dad, however, mom and dad don't really know Johnny down the hallway, so it could be creating some very murky waters. So keep that in mind too. If the student leaves the car at home, ask whether the student away at school discount is available. Some companies do have that. And again, good student discount as well. Taking the car to college isn't necessarily the problem. Failing to tell the insurance company where the car actually lives might be the problem. Like I said, that's why it's an incomplete and not an A, B, C, D, or F. Scenario number 4. We're going to be talking about laptop stolen from a dorm room. A student's $1,200 laptop is stolen, but parents have a $1,000 homeowner's deductible. Technically it's covered. Does not necessarily mean a meaningful claim payment. Yeah. But this is where I think a lot of places and a lot of landlords are being very, very, very smart, is requiring their tenants to have renter's insurance. Not only for the liability side, but in case something like this happens, like we talked about with the garaging address. When you get into the larger cities, the likelihood of loss when it comes to theft, vandalism, or anything like that increases just because of there's more people. And something like this, where if the student would have had their own renter's policy, and you're paying $150 a year for a $25,000 personal property coverage, $500,000 worth of liability with a $500 deductible, then that $1,200 laptop with a $500 deductible comes a lot more advantageous to make the claim. And an aside, if mom and dad make the claim, and let's say their home policy is $2,000 a year, and if it's a 10% discount for a claims-free discount, that's $200. So when that policy sets to renew, the claims-free discount drops off, so it's going to add $200 to the mom and dad's home policy, whereas the renter's policy, same 10% claims-free discounts there, it's only going to go up $12. So you kind of see where I'm going at here? So it's something that pays in the long run. And again, getting your student a better, richer insurance history is never a bad thing. The dorm's insurance does not normally insure the student's belongings, kind of like we talked about last week when we were talking about landlord policies. The parent's homeowner's policy may provide coverage if the student still qualifies as an insured. Coverage away from the residence may have special limits, meaning and then again, this is very company based. Personal property that's covered on the mom and dad's home policy some companies will only extend 10% of that off premise. So this 3 hours away, student away at school is considered off premise at that point. So is there some limitations? Like I said, with some companies, yes. Some companies, it's 100% of the personal property coverage worldwide. So again, talk to your agent. Expensive computers, cameras, instruments, or jewelry may require additional coverage, like scheduling them. If you have just for instance, same student, same $25,000 renter's policy, if they do have a very specialized piece of equipment, $5,000 computer, we can schedule that, meaning list it individually, which can lower the deductible, and you can set the amount at which you want to insure something. So if you have a $5,000 MacBook and we schedule that does not count in that $25,000 worth of personal property coverage on the renter's policy, because it's kind of carrying its own coverage. So you would have the $5,000 for the laptop and then $25,000 for everything else. And again, this is something that is very inexpensive to do. And if you have jewelry, anything like that, same as a regular homeowner's, we can do all of that with a renter's policy. So very, very advantageous. Off-campus apartments can create a different situation, making renter's insurance a better answer, like we talked about. Students should save receipts and serial numbers and photograph expensive property. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, that is, I forgot to give the answer. That's a B. That's a B. Now, if the student has their own renter's policy, we upgrade that to an A+. We upgrade that to an A+, because a $1,200 laptop being stolen with a $500 deductible is way more advantageous to make a claim than mom and dad's $1,000 deductible or higher. So again, student has a renter's policy. This goes to an A+. This goes to an A+. Like I said, yep, covered all that one. So let's go to number 5. Number 5, an apartment renter relying on landlord's insurance. Again, this kind of ties into what we were alluding to in the first one, and it kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about last week. The scenario here: a kitchen fire damages the apartment. The landlord repairs the building, but who replaces the student's clothes, television, furniture, and laptop? And this is something that I think a lot of folks. Well, let's give the grade first, so I'm not backtracking. So if your student is relying on the landlord to replace their belongings, that's an F, because there's no coverage at all. No coverage at all. And like we talked about it being on mom and dad's policy in the previous one, there's a more substantial claim here. So the $1,000 deductible really wouldn't come into play that much. But again, this is something that a renter's policy is always the best thing. I will say this, and we get this a lot, especially this time of year. Sally student goes away to, University of Michigan, go blue. She's a Wolverine, and they're requiring renter's insurance. And they're like, oh, just give me the cheapest one. Just give me the cheapest option, which I understand. When someone's moving out, there's a lot of expense that comes to that. But let's stop and think about this, because a lot of times they're like, well, I'm taking the couch out of my mom and dad's basement. My clothes are all old. They're probably not worth much. I do have a laptop. Let's say they have an Xbox. Yeah, just the minimum $10,000 will work. And that's where I always tell people, let's think about this rationally, okay? Yes, your clothes aren't brand spanking new with the tags on them. But if a scenario like this happens where there is a kitchen fire and it damages all of your stuff, how much would it cost to replace all of your clothes? And now, guys, I will say, generally speaking, girls have more clothes than guys. And once you start talking about shoes, bags, everything else that goes into a woman's wardrobe, they generally have more stuff, which more stuff leads to more expense. So normally, I would say in this day and age, a normal, and again, ladies, I'm generalizing, a normal female student would probably cost $10,000 to replace all of her clothing. And like I said, that's coats, shoes, bags, the whole 9 yards. About $10,000 on average. Guys, we're closer to $7,500. So, and that number is even rising, but it's just the day and time that we live in. So that just is clothes. And getting back to the whole, well, mom and dad's couch out of their basement, if you had to replace that, have you went shopping for a couch or any furniture lately? Holy crap. Minimum $2,500 for a new couch. We're not talking about, oh, they'll give me $50 because it's old. No, we're talking about replacement cost if something happens. So as you can see, the more and more stuff that you have in that apartment, the more expense it would be to replace everything. So don't look at it as, oh, that's just old. They won't give me a whole lot for it. No, think about how much it would cost to replace with new things. So key points for renter's insurance. Some other key points for renter's insurance. We talked about the personal property coverage. I hinted at the liability. Most places that are requiring renter's policies only require $100,000 worth of liability. Nope. Give me at least $500,000. It costs like $6 or $7 more a year to 5 times that coverage. So always go with that. One thing that would be rather advantageous in this scenario is additional living expense. While there is a kitchen fire, you can't really stay there while the repairs and renovations are being done. And you go to school and you're hours away from mom and dad. Where are you supposed to live? This additional living expense would help pay for a hotel room, in a different apartment or a different house to live in temporarily while this is taking place. So these are all things that most people don't consider. So this would be a huge benefit for something like this. Let's see here. Without any renter's insurance, your student would be paying for this out of pocket, or you as mom and dad. Your landlord protects the apartment or house. You need to protect everything that you drug into it. So keep that in mind. All right, we're going to go back to the auto side here. Sally student is using the car for DoorDash, Uber Eats, or other delivery work. This one isn't so hard to fix anymore, just because it's kind of become normal, commonplace. But you do need to make sure that your agent is aware. Here's a scenario. Your student turns on the DoorDash app after school while driving to pick up an order. They cause an accident. Which policy is active at that exact moment? And what do I mean? When it comes to a lot of these delivery or rideshare programs, they provide some level of coverage. And here's where the sticky part is. Where does that policy leave off, and where does your personal auto policy pick up? That's been the debate since this whole Uber delivery thing became popular. Any rideshare, I guess we could kind of lump everything into that. So that's kind of where, on the insurance side, we really need to. This has been one of the bigger debates, in the past since COVID. How do we insure something like this? Because it's not personal use anymore, so it should be a commercial policy. But if that were the case, no one would buy that, because a commercial policy usually is far more expensive than a personal policy. It's because you're making money with it, so there's a higher risk. So you're going to tell me that all of these Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of these drivers are going to have a commercial policy? The likelihood of that happening is next to none. So what a lot of these companies did was, just on your personal policy, they provide an endorsement. Some of them, again, very, very company dependent. So with that being said, if Sally Student does not have an endorsement, does not have a commercial policy, that's going to leave us to a big fat F. Big fat F. Most personal policies, exclude business use. So how do we get that coverage back? Again, personal auto insurance is priced for personal driving, not commercial delivery activity. Coverage supplied through the app that they're working for may only apply during certain parts of the delivery, like we talked about. Where does one end and where does one pick up? And of course, if something happens, neither one is going to really want to pay, because it really wasn't taken care of properly. So this is one of those proactive, not reactive situations. Rideshare coverage and delivery coverage are not necessarily the same thing. Students must tell their agent what platform they're using and what they deliver. The answer could be an endorsement, a different personal policy, or commercial coverage, like I talked about. It is very, very company dependent. And again, with the ease it is to do a lot of these things, the more attractive that option becomes. And by all means, do your thing. Get your side hustle on. I applaud it. I love it. Just make sure that we know about it, so we can make sure that we're taking everything into an account. So if something does happen, all that money that you just made doesn't just go right back down the drain for an uncovered event. That's not what we're trying to do. Key takeaway here is DoorDash sees a side hustle. Your insurance company may see commercial use. Like I said, very, very company dependent. Very company dependent. All right, we got two more here on the docket. Keeping good student discount documentation updated. Is that a good idea? Your child earns the grades, but no one sends the report card to the insurance company. You could be leaving a legitimate discount unused. And if you are sending that in, and if you are communicating with your agent, that's a huge A+. Huge, huge A+. The only caveat to this is that if you're receiving the discount, just know that we're going to need proof, because it's a reward for doing something good. So we're going to need proof that actually happened. Now, you might be saying, well, Ryan, what exactly constitutes good grades? What constitutes being a good student? Well, that's very company dependent. Some are 3.0 and above, some are 3.5 and above. it's something that you're going to have to talk with your agent about. And another big thing is that, let's go over the talking points here. Many carriers offer a discount for qualifying students. And again, how do you qualify? Talk to your agent. Grade requirements and age limits may vary by carrier. Again, sometimes, this isn't just for high school. Sometimes companies will extend the good student discount into their collegiate career if the proper documentation is supplied. So keep in mind, it's not just for high schoolers. And again, very company dependent. Parents may need to provide a report card or transcripts periodically. I would suggest at least once a year if you plan on keeping that discount. Whenever you get your renewal, whether that's annual, 6 months, send your agent the most updated report card, transcript, whatever school or institution provides you with. So just send them the most recent one. The discount may not renew automatically. Again, if it doesn't, this is your mental note. When you get your renewal, send the most recent report card in. Driver's training and telematics discounts may also be available. Again, telematics. Don't assume the agency receives the students' updated grades automatically, because we don't. We don't. And then if we, what I always tell folks when I'm onboarding or getting new clients into the agency, to get me those documents first, and then I'll tell you what the discount is. I'm not going to sell it at a lower price, and then all of a sudden we aren't able to get those documents to the carrier in time. That discount falls off. You call me, Ryan, why is this going up? It was only this much last month. Now it's this month. Well, it's because we didn't get the documents that we talked about. Oh, well, I forgot. Let me get those to you right now. Let's just do that at the beginning. So there's no surprises. There's no you getting upset at me. None of that. We take care of that. Nip it in the butt right at the beginning. So there's no cross lines here. For once, telling the insurance company your kid got good grades can actually save you money. And again, how much? Very company dependent. Very company dependent. And lastly, number eight. Someone smashes a $500 window and steals a $900 laptop. The glass could fall under the auto policy, while the laptop could fall under the home or renter's policy with two different deductibles, which is very true. This is kind of an example we kind of talked about this last week, where even though you quote unquote have full coverage on the vehicle, it doesn't cover the contents in the vehicle. So now we're sitting here going, where does coverage like that come from? Well, it comes from either mom and dad's home policy, like we kind of hinted at, or again, we're going to drive this home. Sally Stu needs a renter's policy. We need a renter's policy. And again, there would be two different deductibles. Now, if the renter's policy and the auto policy are with the same company, we might be able to alleviate one of the deductibles. So keep that in mind. There's more advantages to bundling than just getting a home and auto discount. A lot of times, if there's one activity or one event that causes multiple losses, you don't have to pay a deductible multiple times. So again, comprehensive auto coverage may cover theft of the vehicle or damage caused during the break-in. Theft of the vehicle, not theft of the contents of the vehicle. Auto insurance generally does not cover a stolen laptop, backpack, or phone simply because it was inside the car. Bingo. Personal property may fall under homeowners or renter's insurance, and a separate deductible might apply. Again, same company could bypass one of those deductibles. Keep that in mind. Filing a small property claim may not make financial sense if we are going off mom and dad's. Keep that in mind too. Keep valuables out of sight or take them inside. Lock the keys and never leave the keys in it. Photograph and record serial numbers of expensive electronics. Again, one thing we got to keep in mind, just because you have full coverage on a vehicle does not mean that everything is covered, because the stuff inside the car is not covered. There's no personal property coverage on an auto policy at all. Your car insurance covers the car. It does not turn the back seat into an insured storage locker. Bingo. All right. Like I said, I did have one last thing I wanted to talk about, and that was telematics. Oh, we didn't give the answer here. That's enough. If you're relying on your auto policy to cover personal property inside the vehicle, that's enough. Like I said, one thing I did want to touch on was telematics. It was pushed a long time ago, and it was, going back to my Allstate days, the DriveWise, hated every part of that. When I worked at the other agency, Safeco had one, hated that. They've gotten better to where you're not having to have this thing that plugs into your car any longer. It's on your phone. And the only downside is that it picks up anytime you move, or some of them you actually have to log in when you want to drive. To me, pain in the ass. And that's just me as the insured, not an agent, as the insured. It's just a pain in the butt. And if it is one of those that picks up when you start moving, then what happens if you're riding? If you're riding in a car, and the driver drives like a moron, does that go on me? I don't know. But I don't want, and I have zero, the whole Big Brother is keeping an eye on me. We can throw that right out the window, because any one of us who have one of these, they're doing that anyway. So that I have zero issue with. It's just how they go about it. And if you're a third shift worker, you might as well not even do it, because you're driving when they say you're not supposed to. So yes, they have gotten better, but if we look at it from the agent's point of view, now when we start a policy, you get this, let's say it's 15%. That's a big number. 15%? Holy crap, yes, Ryan, sign me up now. And there's a 90-day focus period, or however you want to describe it. They track your driving for 90 days. And after that 90 days, you get a grade. And if you are the perfect driver, you keep that 15%. Do you know how many people are actually perfect drivers? Not a whole lot. So especially if you're paying monthly, you're paying $200. When it comes to that fourth month, all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I'm paying $220? Ryan, what the heck happened? What happened? Why did my premium go up? Well, after the driving look period, or whatever they call it, they deemed that you were a C driver, not an A driver. But you're still getting a 10% discount, but 5% fell off. Can you see how, as an insured, that would be very, very confusing to me? And picture it from my point of view, where I'm trying to explain this, even though they're still getting a discount. Well, how can I be getting a discount when my premium goes up? Well, you didn't qualify for the full discount. Do what you want. I don't sell those, and I have every company rep that comes in that tries to push them, I give the absolute pushback. If the client really, really wants it, sure. But do I try to sell it? No, I don't. And like I said, it's not because of the whole Big Brother's watching me or anything like that, any of that crap. It's just the legwork and everything. And then how long is that discount good for? So even if I'm able to explain, you're still getting a 10% discount, but not the full 15 anymore. Well, how long does that stay on? How long do they have to keep going with this app? I don't know. To me, I'm a keep it simple, stupid type of guy, and this does not make anything simple. So like I said, most companies have them. And if that's your cup of tea, good for you. But I like to stay away from them. So that's been my TED Talk on telematics. Well, the lesson here today isn't that insurance companies are looking for ways to avoid claims. It's that insurance policies are built around the information that you give them. New driver, new address, new apartment, new school, new side hustle. Those are all reasons to call your agent and make sure that if something happens, they're in the loop. They know what's going on. They can make their best recommendations as to how to make sure all of this is taken care of. So awesome opportunity to reach out to your agent and have a conversation. And while you're at it, review your policy with them. Anytime there's a big life-changing move, this is a time to talk. Sally student is a freshman at U of M. Is she going to have any student loans? Well, let's talk about life insurance. Always a good time. Always a good time. So life insurance, anytime there's a big life change. Well, that's it for me here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Tuesdays with Turbo. I will see you next week. Get out and enjoy the non-rainy, awesome weather. I know I cut my grass last night, and I basically needed a hay baler. So get out, enjoy it. I will see you next week. And I'll leave my little sign off here with the office's phone number and my email. Shoot me a message. Get a hold of me. I will answer any and all of your questions the best I can. I will see you next week.